Greetings, and thank you for joining us for the 22nd episode of DC Animation with Spenser and Friends. This is an LMG Podcast Production. Today, I am joined by a dear friend.
Yes, I am back, and I'm Jordan.
Jordan is back with me today. Now, if you listen to the main podcast, you've definitely heard Jordan's voice, as he is one of the members of the League of Melanated Gentlemen. And an on the record hater of DC.
That is,
But go ahead.
I would say that's semi-true, semi-false, a little bit.
I feel like the DC hatred is just character work.
Yeah, a little bit, but there also is that DC hate there. But yes, like
Yeah.
play it up a little bit, I would say.
Okay, and that's okay. We like a little showmanship here at the league.
Yeah.
But for the people who don't remember, you appeared on an earlier episode, but for those who weren't here for that, can you tell us a little bit about your DC consumption?
Yeah, so I mean, being a man of the culture, a real nerd of the culture, I tend to lean a lot towards Marvel, but when it comes to DC, I would definitely say I have my fair share. So of course I've played like all the Arkham Knight series. I've watched a bunch of the animated movies. I think last time I said I've probably seen every animated movie from 2010 to about 2013. I've seen all of them. Comics wise, I mean, I know some characters, I know some stories, but I don't know the kind of the in-depth detail when it comes to things like that, kind of like what I do with Marvel. But I would say my DC knowledge is, I'll give it probably like a solid 7.5.
Okay.
Solid 7.5. But yeah, I dabble in the DC world.
Okay. I know you love your Flintstones.
Yeah, there you go. That's my DC. And I'm currently reading Godzilla versus King Kong versus Justice League, and that's my DC consumption for the year.
That'll work. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate you for joining us on this journey through DC animation. Today's film is Justice League Thrones of Atlantis, released January 15th, 2015, and the comic book on which it was based is Thrones of Atlantis. I will read a synopsis in my own words, and then we're just going to talk about it.
Sounds good.
So, we open in the Marianas Trench with a military submarine being attacked. Over at Star Labs, Cyborg is having an oil change, and Steve Trevor comes to tell Cyborg what's happened with the submarine. In Athens, Superman and Wonder Woman do some heavy flirting, and Arthur Curry is at a bar drinking and talking to a lobster because his father just died. He gets into a skirmish with some people while being watched by a mysterious red-headed woman and two men in a car. Down at the submarine, Cyborg is investigating to see what happened. While down there, he finds handprints and learns that nuclear weapons are missing. Cyborg is then attacked and makes a tactical retreat. He calls in the League, but only Shazam and Flash show up, so they decide to go get everyone in person. Hal is interrupted while trying to secure a date, and Diana and Clark are interrupted while on their date. Green Lantern is pissed that Batman isn't at the meeting, so he goes to Gotham to go get him. He interrupts Batman's chase of Scarecrow henchmen, which pisses off Batman, but he does, make the meeting, and the League begin scanning and assessing the situation. They determine that this is related to the lost city of Atlantis. Prince Orm and my nigga Black Manta go visit the Queen, Queen Atlanta, and the prince wants to wage war against the surface world, but the Queen ain't having it because she knows that Darkseid is behind the things that have happened, not the surfacers. The Queen then asks Mira to collect Arthur because he is the only hope of peace between Atlantis and the surface. Black Manta executes his plan to kill Arthur and Dr. Shin, as well as attack Atlantis disguised as surface dwellers to move forward with Orm's agenda. Dr. Shin is killed, but Arthur is attacked by Atlanteans. Mira comes in with the save and lays waste to the attackers. Superman and Batman arrive at Dr. Shin's place to find it ransacked, and his work has been destroyed. Orm's plan for all-out war doesn't work, as the Queen wants to meet with the Justice League to broker peace. Arthur wakes up, and Mira tells him about his birth. Arthur puts on the uniform, but the armor is a little much. But he does keep the orange, though. He goes up for some air, and he and Mira are attacked by the Trench. The League arrives, and they are able to deal with the Trench. Orm and the Queen have a final argument before he stabs her in the back, killing her. The League is on the way to Atlantis. When they arrive, they learn of the Queen's death. Orm reveals himself and says, "Hell yeah, I did it." And so with the Trident, Ocean Master is able to pretty easily deal with the Justice League, and he puts them into cocoons to be eaten by a trench monster. Through the power of friendship, Arthur unlocks his power and frees himself, and then he frees Superman so that everyone else can be saved. Ocean Master dispatches his army to Metropolis to begin the war with the surface. The army attempts U.S. Army attempts to stop Atlantis, but it's not going well for them. Luckily, the Justice League arrive to the fight. Black Manta reveals to Aquaman that this was his plan all along and that he will eventually take the throne from Ocean Master, but then Aquaman calls upon a shark and Black Manta is eaten. The League is doing pretty well in the fight, but Ocean Master is a problem. Just as Aquaman is about to be killed by Ocean Master, Batman has Cyborg show everyone the footage of him admitting that he killed the Queen. With that, Aquaman takes out Ocean Master, he takes the Trident, he takes his role as king, he takes the throne. During Arthur's crowning ceremony, the League talks about making things official, and Cyborg lets them know that he's been working on a little watchtower. In the post-credits, Orm is in Bel Rev locked up and gets a proposition from the one and only Lex Luthor. So, Jordan, what do you think of the movie?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know how many times people have told you they were not feeling the DC animated movie like that, but this one was not it for me.
Okay.
And some of my issues lay where I feel like a lot of these Justice League movies, when it comes to like a team up movie, we get a lot of retelling of the same story, not the same story, but a retelling of like how the Justice League forms. And like this one, I was expecting. Honestly, I had never seen this movie, so this was my first time watching it. I was expecting Aquaman to already be a part of the League, and kind of like when I seen him starting out in the beginning, like I thought he was maybe just like lost, like maybe he just didn't know what to do with his life. But I realized like, oh, this is how he joins the Justice League, and I was thinking, okay, so they let Cyborg join the Justice League before they let Aquaman. So that was one of the things. Also, the art style on this one, I was not a big fan of the art style. Um, I didn't like Superman's costume. I know that this time his costume was a little bit different. I enjoyed Wonder Woman's costume. Batman's voice was not. I did not enjoy Batman's voice at all. Um, and then the movie to me, it was only okay in my opinion. Um, and I guess once we really get to talking about it, we'll go into more detail. But what did you think about it?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I had a good time watching it. There are definitely some elements that I think could have been improved upon, and I think that the comic book this is a case where the comic book version was probably a little bit better story than the movie, but there were definitely things that happened in the movie that I enjoyed. So one thing, this is a pretty direct sequel to Justice League War. So in
Okay.
Justice League War, we have an end credit scene where Orm rises out of the water and basically declares war against the surface world because Darkseid's stuff ended up killing the king.
Okay.
And so Orm has an agenda. and this has a lot to do with it. I mean, and we see a lot of, how he gets to his agenda. But yeah, so in the comic book version, we do not get an origin story for Aquaman. Like Aquaman, we already know who Aquaman is. Aquaman is already king. So in the and it's been a minute, but in the comic book version, there's a US missile that is accidentally launched and it hits Atlantis. And so Atlantis is like, "Oh, okay, war then." And Aquaman in that is actually because his brother is, the one waging the war, and the Justice League is like, nah, he just drowned major cities. We need to take care of that. And Aquaman is like, no, 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 no. I'm defending my brother in this situation. And
Mm-hmm.
there's there's some kind of infighting between Aquaman and the Justice League, but really the Atlanteans and the Justice League, because they want him to answer for what he did. And Aquaman's like, yeah, but it's a little more complicated than that. And if you put hands on my brother, then you're going to have to deal with the full weight of Atlantis. But eventually, they all get like cocooned and then, placed underwater to be taken. And Cyborg has to like make some phone calls to call in some other people because the big three is who got taken into the water. And Aquaman is the only one who's able to like bust out because, he's got the powers and the others do not. So Cyborg has to call some people in to help, and he just calls whoever's available because Flash and Green Lantern are out doing other things. So like Hawkman has to jump
You
in
know what I
there.
noticed too?
Was
So
that?
I noticed in this movie that this might be a thing that they always do because I recently just read this as well. But Flash and Green Lantern, are they always racing? Because I was reading the Godzilla versus Kong versus Justice League, and in that, those two were racing in that. And then I saw it again in this. I was like, is that a thing that they do?
I think it is a thing. Like it's kind of an
Okay.
ongoing thing. And they, sneak in some little things because there was one point where Aquaman says outrageous, which is not necessarily a catchphrase, but there was a point when Aquaman was just like that was his go-to word was outrageous. And so
Okay, I didn't know that.
yeah, like that's just sprinkling in some little
Little
things here and
nuggets.
there, a little seasoning.
Yeah.
So, but in the comic book, Volko, Willem Dafoe's character in the movie, he's who's behind this in the comic book. So he's the one who launched the missile. He's the one who wanted Aquaman to like take the king's ship, and like he's the one who like set all of these things into happening. But in the comic book, yeah, we don't get an origin story. So that may be one thing that I mean, but we needed an origin story here because we hadn't seen Aquaman yet, and we
So
had to kind of know what
so in
happens
all
and
the
how he
other
gets here.
movies, all the other movies before this, we hadn't seen Aquaman.
In this world, not
Oh, in
yet,
this one. Okay.
because you remember Justice League War starts a continued universe, and this movie exists in the DC animated movie universe.
Oh, I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, so that is why we hadn't seen Aquaman yet. There are movies where we have seen Aquaman, but as far as like the new 52's animated world, which is essentially what this is, we hadn't met Aquaman yet. And so this movie introduces him.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. So I mean, that's obviously where we get Shazam because I remember Shazam was in Justice League War. Okay.
Yeah. And I um disagree pretty much for the most part because I I think I'm used to this Batman though. I will say it I at the beginning it took me a minute. Like I can't just say that I was just on board from jump when I first heard uh Jason's version of Batman, but since he did it for so long, I grew to appreciate it and I like it, but he's still not in my, he's not my top guy and he's not my second guy.
Yeah, I
But
just looked him up. I didn't know whose voice it was. Jason O'Mara.
yeah, and he voices Batman through this universe. And I get I like it.
Oh,
It
the
took
guy from Terra Nova. Okay.
yeah, like it took me a minute to get there, but I do like it. Um, but yeah, I like the voice cast. And we're going to talk about, some specific people here in a minute. But yeah. So,
So I was
okay.
gonna say I got a question too. So in this, when in the beginning we kind of see Superman go on a date. Well, he's kind of like him and Diana are kind of a thing, and then they go on a date, and then Lois pulls up. So at this time, is Lois and Superman or Lois and Clark Kent not together, or are they together?
They are
Because
not
she looked like she was a little jealous.
they are not together. Superman is that's why Wonder Woman so this is an interview. No, it's a date.
Yeah.
Like Wonder
Okay.
Woman cleared that up real quick.
Lois and Clark are not a thing in this one.
No.
Gotcha. Okay.
Superman and Wonder Woman are together in this one. Because in Justice League War, they met and they were like, ooh, okay, I see you.
Gotcha.
So,
I
yeah.
mean, Diana do look good. I will say she do look good.
And, everybody was interested. Like Green Lantern was interested, Shazam was interested, and Superman just kind of looked at him like, no.
Yeah.
Like, men are here. So let's just not even. But yeah. So we open with pretty much the military just kind of on patrol, and they get attacked, and it does not go well for them. And then we see Cyborg, I guess, having a dream of when he was human, and I was like, of course they got him running with a white woman.
Hey, you got to do that to our people, huh?
Yeah, but that's fine. He was about to be a star athlete.
That's how it happens, huh?
That's what usually happens.
Dr. Umar would be so pissed at Cyborg, boy, I tell you.
Dr. Umar would not approve of Cyborg's dream. But he may approve of Cyborg's actions, which we'll talk about a little later. But yeah. So Steve Trevor makes like a little brief appearance. You know who Steve Trevor is, right?
I mean, I know who Steve Trevor. Did I miss that?
He's the one who like at the very beginning of the movie, he's the one who they reported it to, and then he's the one that went in there to tell Cyborg about the
Oh, okay.
submarine.
I didn't even notice it because though he was two guys having a conversation about they were talking about something I can't remember what they were talking about. But underneath the submarine, I think they were talking about it on. I don't even remember what it was, but he was one of those two guys.
Yeah. So
Gotcha. I
yeah,
didn't even notice that.
yeah, like he's the guy who went in there and said, Cyborg, here's the situation. And
Yeah.
he was the one who said, like, you need to call the league. And Cyborg was like, let's not do that yet. I don't want to worry them if it's nothing.
So no one else knows that the league is not really formed at this point.
Yeah, and I think Steve Trevor may have also been the one saying, like, we were gonna call him the Super Seven, but the Justice League tested better, and like he was the one at the beginning having that conversation. Because whenever Billy in the end of Justice League War, Billy's like the Super Seven, and everybody's like, gross. Nobody wants that name. So I guess the Justice League was like a marketing situation. And that's one of the things, like, we see very early Justice League. We're used to seeing an established Justice League who's been doing stuff for a while. Everybody already knows each other. They've already got the headquarters. Like, all that stuff has already been done, and like all that stuff has happened already. So we're seeing a very early stages of things, like an actual reboot, a start over. And so seeing like the early inner workings and the like building process, we're seeing some of that get worked out essentially in real time, because we're used to it already being established. And so in Justice League War, we see everybody meet for the first time. Everybody who didn't already know each other. Flash and Green Lantern already knew each other. Batman had heard of Flash. They knew who Superman was, but like hadn't actually met, like all of that. So they are aware of each other to some extent, but they actually formally meet. And then at the end of Justice League War, they're having a discussion of like, hey, we should continue this. We should actually be a team. And then some people are like, no, I got other shit to do. Like, I'm busy. This was a one-time thing, all that. So they kind of disagree on how to move forward with this whole league thing. And so we're seeing some of the politics and we're seeing a lot of that get worked out.
Yeah, because I mean, I noticed like Green Lantern's like, oh, I'm so tired of this guy, in referring to Batman.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so like
And
they already tell like he's already getting tired of him.
yeah, and so in Justice League War, they meet for the first time, and it opens with them meeting. So there's, parademons are attacking, and Batman is trying to figure out what's going on, but so is Green Lantern, and they don't know each other, so they're kind of just getting in each other's way. And then eventually they have a conversation and realize they're on the same side and all of that. But, their personalities are clashing because, Hal is a comedian and Batman
Right.
is super serious. And Batman pissed Hal off because whenever they met for the first time, Batman snuck his ring off of him and was
Yeah,
like,
I remember that.
hey, what's this? And yeah, so Hal from Jump has not been a fan of Batman.
Yeah.
And it's because Batman doesn't want to play around with him, I guess. But yeah, so this is a pretty direct sequel. And with that context, hopefully that helps to improve your view of the film.
How did
But
you
okay.
what did you feel about Superman's costume? Because like the costume was okay, but I wasn't really a big fan of it. Like I don't like the black S on the back of the cape and the dark palette.
I I think that this is one of my favorite iterations of Superman, but definitely not my favorite uniform.
Gotcha.
I
Yeah.
don't like that it goes all the way up his neck.
Yeah.
And I also don't think I like the black S on the cape.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't
I
like that either.
like I want that to be yellow. I don't the black S feels too much like Zod.
Yeah. No, I
And
give you that.
yeah, so I don't like the black S. I don't hate it, but like I feel like the S on his chest and the S on his cape should match or be in
They're
the
definitely
same.
clashing.
Yeah, like it. Yeah, I don't like it very much. But yeah, like this is one of my favorite iterations of Superman because this Superman does not play around. And we're going to talk about one of those moments a little later on as well, as we talk through the movie. Um, I'm going to try to keep us on track, but also we may jump around. I don't know what's going to happen. We can do what we want.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, I got
first,
a comment for the very beginning of the movie with Arthur, but I'll let you get to it.
um, okay, so Cyborg, getting some work done. Luckily, he gets his lung removed, because that helps him explore the sea. And then in Athens, Superman and Wonder Woman are kind of talking about feeling lonely. And then they were like, but we have each other. And so then Superman shows her the trick of all you have to do is put on glasses and you're a different person.
That was so
That's all
stupid.
you have to do.
Yeah, that was so stupid. I like that was a nod. Like the writer's like, I'm gonna get him with this one. And like, yeah.
Yeah, that's why she was like, it's so weird to just be able to hide in plain sight. And he was like, it's not hiding. And she was like, yes, it is. There's no difference. Like,
Yeah.
he was like, not hiding, blending in. She was like, yeah, that's the same thing. But yeah, so Arthur is, getting drunk and talking to a lobster. And then he gets into a little brawl.
I chuckled a little bit at that, like him talking to the lobster because it reminded me of the Deep from the boys. Just how
Yeah.
he's always talking with different fish and everything.
And that's the thing. Whenever I watched the boys reminded me of this scene because
Yeah.
I'd seen this first. And I think that DC was having fun with it because we know that Aquaman gets a lot of heat for, all he does is talk to fish and he's like useless. And
Yeah.
so I think they were making fun of that concept and that idea with him having a drunken conversation with a lobster. Like I think
Yeah.
that was them like pointing like this movie did like the thing with the glasses. Like they were like, we know it's fucking stupid. And we can make fun of ourselves. That's fine. That's cool. Or we can, we did this, we thought it was a good idea. The internet attacked us for it. So we can laugh too. That's cool. Like
Yeah.
I think it was one of those. And I appreciate that. Like I'm glad that they have the awareness to, do that without it being an issue. I think that generally speaking, superhero movies are pretty good at that. Sometimes it's just bullshit, and it's like, what? Other times they're really good at saying, "This is stupid. Why are we doing that?" And then they're like, that's just the way we do things. It's just how it works.
Yeah.
So yeah. Now one thing that I will say, whenever Arthur is having the fight and the dude tries to stab him and nothing happens, and he he threw the shit out of that dude. Like
Yeah.
that dude like we're blasting off again.
Yeah. Yeah. He would definitely get those dudes' hands. Because when I first saw him getting beat up, I was like, hang on, there's no way he's getting beat up right now. So then that's what I was like, is this before he was Aquaman? Like before he got powers? And then he was like, all right, let me get up and quit playing. I was like, oh, okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah. And that because I thought the same thing. I was like, I, I know they're not just beating his ass. And
Yeah.
then whenever he got up and he was like, all right, let's go. I was like, and then people started flying out of windows. I was like, oh, okay. That's fine. I
Yeah. Yeah.
understand what's happening now. So yeah. Um so Cyborg goes down to investigate and he sees handprints. So he's like, okay, obviously people were down here and there are nuclear weapons missing. And he's like, that's not good. And then he gets attacked, he leaves, and he calls in the league because he's like, yeah, this is serious now. Like I have some evidence. I need some help looking into this. Like this is a real problem because hands down here, that's not no, that's this was planned. This was an attack. We need to do something. It is bigger than me now. So, you know, as you mentioned, like the league doesn't just show up. They so we see the members who were like, you know, ready to do this, and then we see the people that don't make it are the ones who are like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So they got to go get people in person. And I'm kind of wondering, Flash was very subtle about it. Flash, like he did, like what Flash did made sense. Whenever Cyborg and Shazam just teleport there, uh, I feel like that wasn't subtle at all.
Not at
And
all.
I'm wondering, like, so Diana and Clark, they obviously know, like, that they need to go and, they're being summoned basically. But I was like, so they just okay.
Yeah, bro. It's like people walk around the background, they inside the diner, everybody just seeing all this. I'm
Yeah,
sure
everybody
Lois is
just
like,
like,
what the fuck is going on?
yeah, that's why Lois was like, I gotta go. See what the fuck's going on. Which,
Yeah.
yeah. Lois, yeah, she was trying to interfere because she definitely was like, yeah, me and Clark are real close. We share a byline sometimes. And
She's definitely taco blocking.
yeah,
She
and
was
Wonder Woman was like, I don't care. Like, this is no, it's a date. Know that.
yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. So Clark and Diana got interrupted twice. They got interrupted by Lois and then Cyborg and Lois was also like, oh, if this is a date, you should have taken her somewhere more fancy. It's like, Lois, go home.
Called him country boy.
Yeah,
So
like,
yeah.
Lois, okay, we get it.
That's a real cute nickname, country boy.
Yeah, but um, so yeah, then everybody's at the table except Batman and Green Lantern's like, nah, if I gotta be here, he gotta be here. So I'm gonna go get him. I'll be right back. And
Yeah.
we see Batman chasing down some Scarecrow villains, and he's not even really chasing them. And that is one of the things that Batman points out to Green Lantern. He was like, I caught them. And he was like, I didn't want them caught. I wanted them afraid. I needed information. You don't understand how I do things. Get the fuck out of my city.
See, and this is when I didn't like his voice. Like he was reprimanding Green Lantern, and his voice to me he was like, I wanted them to fear me. He's like, do you know where Scarecrow is keeping the toxin? It's like when he was just reprimanding, I'm just like, this isn't the Batman voice that I'm used to. Man, and that's probably what it is. Like I'm not used to this Batman voice.
It takes some getting used to. I will say it was rough for me in an earlier episode because there's a point in Son of Batman where he's reprimanding Damian, and like the first time I heard it, I was like, no, that wasn't. I needed Kevin for that.
Yeah.
So, and Son of Batman is the movie that exists in this same universe right before this one, but they're not necessarily related because Son of Batman is just Batman. But yeah, I think I heard his voice long enough where I got used to it and made peace with it. But yeah, I agree. At when I was probably at your same point, no, I couldn't. It took a while for me to be cool with it. So yeah, that was I see how you got there with the new voice of Batman, or like this voice of Batman.
Yeah.
So they do Batman does make the meeting, and then we see them investigating and them figuring shit out and them like working out everything that's going on and them using their collective knowledge to do stuff. And I'm like, this I love this. I like what's happening right now, because I don't know how often it is that we actually get to see the Justice League work through and figure stuff out. And this is one of those times where we get to see, multiple people contributing in very different ways, because we see, of course, Batman is using his detective skills, and Batman is, calling plays. Later on, we see Wonder Woman using her knowledge of the old world to, determine that this is Atlantis and that that's what's going on. Green Lantern uses their knowledge of 360-degree combat skills. Like we see them all, like Barry uses his CSI shit. Like they all get involved. They all use their knowledge. I love it. I'm glad that we get to see them like actually work through what it is that's going on here. It's a great thing. So we see that in this movie, Orm and Black Manta are working together. Normally, we see Black Manta just, hating Aquaman, being, essentially his arch nemesis, being one of the biggest problems that he has to deal with. And I don't know that I'm not super familiar with like a bunch of Aquaman's content, at least his solo content, but I don't know how often Ocean Master and Black Manta are working together. I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like Black Manta hates all of them. But
I
anyway,
think I'll say it towards the end of the episode. It's fine. You can keep
okay.
going.
So, uh, Black Manta is like, all right, we need to kill. And that's one thing that happened. So we see that Black Manta is actually disguising himself as the guy helping Dr. Shin figure out who Arthur is.
Yeah.
Because, Dr. Shin is an expert on Atlantis things, and he's pretty much the only one who like they lead us to believe he's the only one who like is crazy enough to believe that Atlantis is actually a place, and that Arthur
and that's
is
the guy
actually
that pulls up on him at his house, right?
yes,
Like a little bit later. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, and that's the guy. So he and Black Manta were watching Arthur during the fight from the car and like taking pictures and being like, "Hey, I think we found him." Like that was them.
Okay.
Because one of the things that you don't realize until later is that Black Manta was the guy who was with him, because you don't realize that until you see Black Manta on the phone from underwater. And then
That's a interesting way of working. But
yep, it's magic and advanced technology. The fact that they can hear each other speak underwater.
that so I know during a regular podcast I talk about when I'm watching something, I will get taken out of it and then I just immediately have to dismiss the thought. So my first one was, how is Cyborg not being crushed by the pure pressure of the water? Then I was like, yeah, how are they talking underwater? And I was like, can Superman survive underwater? I know he can. I guess I've never seen Superman in outer space, so I never thought about it. And then I was like, can he go to outer space?
Superman being in outer space all the time.
Okay.
That's why Superman being in outer space is why I was always confused when I did see Superman with like something to help him breathe. Like how Cyborg had the thing over his mouth and nose.
Right.
Like there have been times when Superman has been in Atlantis and had one of those, and I'm like, why does he have one of those? Like Superman does not require oxygen, and so I don't understand why he needs that. But with Cyborg, he's barely human anymore. So
Right.
that's why he's fine. Who shouldn't be okay is Batman.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, I feel like a lot of them should have, well, not a lot of them, but yeah, Batman should have been crushed by pressure. Cyborg
Probably,
should have been crushed by pressure.
I think
Wonder Woman would
Cyborg
have
would
been
have been okay.
okay.
I think Cyborg,
You think Cyborg would have been okay?
I think
They
so.
kind of
I mean,
way down there.
well, that's the thing. We don't know how deep it actually is. And it looks like it wasn't deep enough to not be penetrated by sunlight. So the fact that there was,
Gotcha.
any
Like
light
the
at
trench
all.
people.
Yeah, like the trench, that's deep. Like the trench,
Okay.
I'm sure they exist in darkness. But at least, and it, we don't know, like, we don't
Yeah.
actually know the depth of Atlantis, but the fact that it's a sunken city would lead me to believe that it can't have sunk that far. So
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that they are still within the range where sunlight is still making it through the water, which would
Okay.
lead me to believe.
I had to
I mean,
dismiss those thoughts though, because like once you start thinking about it too hard, you're like, all right, let me just chill.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, there are a lot of things where if you think about it, it's like, what the fuck? No, and superhero bullshit is a line that I use pretty regularly because oftentimes that is the answer. Like whenever Clark and Diana just put on glasses and they're new people. The
Imagine
superhero
somebody does
bullshit.
that in real life. Imagine you rob a bank and the police about you like, oh shit, let me throw my glasses on, and like, oh, we couldn't find them.
Yeah. And it's so funny because there's kind of an ongoing joke that in New Girl, Zoe Deschanel, whenever she has glasses and bangs, and then whenever she doesn't have glasses and bangs, she looks like a different person. And if you see side by side pictures, you might be like, huh, okay, I all right. If you told me those two were sisters, I'd be like, okay,
You give it the pass.
yeah. But then if you told me those were the same person, it'd be like, oh, that's interesting. But yeah, I
When
honestly, it's still stupid. Like that's a
one
thing from the 30s that they're still using.
one more thing that kind of throws me off is, so when we get to the point where the trench are like attacking Arthur, and like they're also attacking Atlantis, we see a bunch of like explosions and stuff on fire underwater, and I was like, wait a minute.
I
How is it
didn't
so
think
fire?
I didn't think we saw stuff on fire. I thought we just saw like the
Nah,
explosions, but that was it.
we have it on, we have stuff on fire, because I made a note to put that. I was like, that is wild, because we also see Mira kind of for the first time, which my only
Exposure.
exposure to Mira is from the Aquaman movie. So like I didn't know like how badass that she could be.
Oh
And
yeah.
when we see her pull up on the trench people when to go help, Arthur out, like she's nice.
Yeah. She and I have said it before. I will say it again. We see in this movie that Atlantis and Themyscira do not have a problem spilling blood. We see
Yeah.
that Mira she was cutting them up like people from Atlantis and the Trent, like anything. She was like, oh yeah, all y'all can get it. She was putting people on t-shirts all day
Yeah.
long.
No, she really was. She really was.
Like there was one dude, he tried to like hide behind a rock. She split him in three ways. I was like, ooh, he's dead. Like I had to rewind it when I saw her do that. But yeah, she was putting them down. And yeah, Mira is she's too much. Like she's a waterbender for real.
Yeah, for real.
And yeah, I loved her in this movie. She was great. And she showed, how capable she was without, having to like she flexed a little bit. And I'm glad she got the moment to. So yeah, she comes in there and just, lays waste to these people after they kill Dr. Shin and they, attack Aquaman at his house.
Yeah.
So after that, we see Superman and Batman. They arrive at Dr. Shin's place, and Batman's like, yeah, he's dead. And Superman was like, why do you think he's dead? It's like, because you don't destroy somebody's work and then leave them alive. Like,
Yeah, even
Clark,
Batman knows that. For
yeah, like,
somebody not to kill Batman, like, yeah, I do that all the time.
yeah, Clark was like, what do you think this is? Or Batman said to Superman, like, what do you think this is? Like, what do you mean? How do I know? Like, or you must be new to this. Because
Yeah,
Clark,
this is a regular Thursday.
because Clark made it a point to say, I'm an investigative journalist. And Batman's like, journalism's dead. Like, nah.
Yeah,
So yeah, the fact that Clark thought he was hanging in the detective game was funny to me. But you know, also Batman again starts calling plays, and Superman is like, who made him leader? When do we decide that? It's like, well, he's calling play. He's trying to get shit done. That's
right.
who. So yeah, like go. He's right. Let's do this. So yeah. Anyway, uh, Batman has to explain to Superman how, things work. And then Superman, pulls some stuff out of the water, puts it together, and they're able to piece together what the situation is. So Orm has now tried for the second time to coerce, the world into, or to coerce Atlantis into fighting a war. And one of the things that said to me was that speaks to how important a narrative is. It speaks to the lies that can be told up high to influence the people down low. I really like the connection there because Orm is, you know, fabricating stuff to get the people on his side because
Right.
he's got an agenda. Like there are certain things he wants to do and he knows that he can't just go do them. He's got to, have the approval of the people at the end of the day. And so he's making the moves to do that and, being deceitful and everything. And I like that this movie puts an emphasis on the fact that the narrative can determine so much. Like the narrative and the truth are very different. And all it takes is, a well placed situation to influence the larger body of what is right and wrong. And we see that, in the real world. And so I love that happened. I love that we got to see, some of the like dirty politics that, people are trying to use to meet their own ends. Because we know that Orm wants to, wage war against the surface for some pretty selfish reasons, but he's hiding it under legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
Because in his mind, it's like, well, my father was killed by these people, so we need to deal with them. And it's like, yeah, that's not like you kind of believe that, but you're also kind of just mad at your mom. And you're kind of using this to take that out on her
You,
because
you imagine mom was a hoe.
she was not a hoe.
True.
Here's the thing. She did that, but like as far as I understood, I don't know if this is all the way true, but from what I understood, she did that before she married the king. She was promised to the king, but she wasn't his yet whenever she, did what she did.
I'm
That
not gonna
was
say
that
that
was
she a
my
hoe.
understanding.
She just made a whole decision. I don't know.
Okay, well, she wanted the freedom to love whoever she wanted, but because of traditions and customs, she was, already promised to the king. So, you
That's
know,
what hoes say.
All right. Atlantis is one of the many civilizations that lives in a very old way. And so they, already had like predetermined um wedding situations and, the fact that they still live under like a pretty set monarchy that is very directly related to royal blood and all of that. But yeah, essentially, she was, I don't want to say sold, but like she was promised to the king and she had no say in that. Or she could have said no, but she decided, I want to maintain peace uh within my people, and so I'm going to acquiesce and like just begrudgingly go along with it because it's looking like she didn't want to be there and she was not happy to be there.
Yeah.
But that is why we are not going to call her a hoe, because
Okay.
she fell in love with somebody before she was married.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. That is the way I understood it. I understood it as, yes, it was arranged, but it had not happened, and she actually found somebody she liked, and they knew each other biblically because they were in love, and a baby happened, and they were a happy family. But then she was like, "Oh shit, I got to go back home and do all that mess," and so she did, because they live in an old way and she respected the old way. But yeah, we're not going to call her a hoe, because that's not what happened. At least the way I saw it, that's not what happened. But Orm is still pissed about it, to the point where Orm just refers to him as bastard.
Yeah.
Like, it's just hello, bastard. Like, oh, that's disrespectful, but okay. And so, um, for the second time, Orm has tried to, manipulate things into his favor. And the queen ain't having it. The queen is like, no, I know what you did. I have eyes everywhere. Don't, because he tries to attack her and he basically calls her a hoe. And
See,
she is like, I,
I was
first of all,
young.
yeah, she said, first of all, that's disrespectful. Second of all, I deny nothing. I know exactly what I did. I was a grown ass woman. So yeah,
Ask your daddy, he know.
yeah, shut your mouth, boy. And also, don't think I don't know about your little coup. Don't think I don't know about your little games which you've been doing.
Hey, he
You
was shook.
attacked, and she said you attacked your own people. Yeah, I saw you. I know it was you. I saw you do it.
Yeah, he was shook when she said they got pissed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Because that's her son, I think that's why she tried to protect him and not just say, because she got on the intercom and was like, "Hey, everybody, this is an isolated incident. Everything is okay. We're gonna be fine." Like, she did all that, and she could have got on there and been like, guess who's responsible for what just happened?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she could have done that, but she was like, no, 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 we're not gonna do that. But you will pay for your transgressions. And then Black Manta, tries to be like, "Hey, you can't leave," and then she's like, "I am the queen. You better get your fucking hands off me."
And she ended up getting murked though.
Yeah,
Rest in
because
peace.
yeah, she was like, "War is not in my plan," and then Orm gently whispered, "But it is in mine."
And slid it off in her.
Yeah, and that, yeah, she's dead, and I'm sure that she didn't think that Orm would do that, but yeah, he kills her. He takes the trident, and it's an issue. So whenever we see Arthur, get down to Atlantis, and he and Mira, talk about, you are the rightful king. This is what happened to you because his dad was like, your mother was a hoe, and she left. And Mira was like, no, she wasn't. That's not what happened.
She was a godly woman.
Yeah. Literally, I guess. Uh yeah, your mother fell in love with your father. Um they were happy together. They had you, but duty called. So she had to come back down here and do the whole queen thing. But she never stopped loving you. She never stopped caring about you, and she wanted nothing but the best for you. And then, shows him the king armor, and he's like, this is a little much. I like this orange, but all this gold, yeah, I don't need all that. And then he goes up for some air, and then that's when they're attacked by the trench. And that is when Superman showed me, oh shit. Because in an earlier episode, in episode 14, Superman versus the Elite, that's probably the first time that I was like, you know, okay. I might kind of fucks with Superman a little bit. But in this movie, whenever he drops it, because we see all the other, Justice League members doing some fighting, Superman lands and he just says, retreat. And they get the fuck up out of there.
The boys are shook.
They knew the deal when he landed. That's when I was like, oh, this Superman. Oh, I fucks with this Superman.
It's like they had a play-by-play, like they see them on land before murking people, and they was like, yeah, this is the dude we heard about. We're gonna just go ahead and leave him alone. Let's get up out of here.
Yeah, because whenever we see him in Justice League War, like that was also a movie where it was like, I think I fucks with this Superman, because that's, the whole who would win, Superman or Batman. That's when we see them interact for the first time, and Batman gets embarrassed. And yeah, that's how that's gonna go. As much as I love Batman, I know for a fact that with no prep time, Batman's not walking away. And if Superman was merciless, Batman's not walking away. And so I said all of that to say that this movie does a lot of things well, in my opinion. And one of them is demonstrate that Superman is not who you want those problems with. The fact that the Trench, I assume the Trench do not know who he was because they don't watch the news. They don't.
I feel like Black Manta has either he got that presence, or Black Manta must have been like, hey, if you see a guy in red and blue and he flying, y'all want to stay away from him.
But that's the thing. I don't know if that's just a conversation that happens with all of them. I think that when Superman arrived, they were like, oh no.
Because you got that presence about him?
Yeah, I think he just landed and created a shockwave that everybody felt. And yeah, when his eyes glowed red and he just said retreat, yeah, they were like, yes, sir. We're gonna go. We're gonna be over here if you need us for anything. So yeah, that was when I was like, oh yeah, the Superman, he don't play around, and that's what I need. That's what I want for my Superman. I think that just in this case, I think just a little bit of fear is healthy. Just a little bit.
I would say, so the next part that we're about to get to, as far as like, because we talked about the Queen being killed, and then Aquaman and them, they get attacked, and Superman just gets like electrocuted and then gets taken out. And I'm like, yo, how is Superman getting took out by this electric? And then they also get trapped in the little chrysalis things.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
And then
let's actually get into that right now. So, they go down there, and then they're like, "You're going to love her. She's wonderful." And then they get to the city. They're like, oh my God, it's beautiful. It's great. And nobody's there. And Superman is like, something ain't right. So they find a lady. She's like, everybody's preparing for war. And Mira's like, no. The Queen said we're not doing that. So the Queen is dead. Oh. By a surface dweller, no less. Oh. So Orm has already spread the word that the surface people not only nuked y'all, but then came into this house and killed the Queen. And so then whenever they, get to her body, Orm just shows up and is like, hello, bastard. Did you see yourself on the throne? Is that what you thought this was going to be? Is it everything you imagined? And Mira's, on site, Mira's like, you killed her. And he's like, yes, I did. And she mewed. Like he was monologuing a little bit about it.
He was.
And luckily, Cyborg had the record button going. But once they fight, we learn pretty quickly that Atlantis is not to be trifled with, and especially underwater. But one of the things that I also think this movie does very well, and I have mentioned this before, you have heard me say probably more times than you would like to have heard me say that Aquaman is a problem. And magic has a lot to do with that. Now, Superman has no resistance to magic. Magic affects Superman like it affects anything else. There are a lot of things that Superman is resistant to, but magic is not one of them. And so, because magic works on Superman, that is why Superman is able to be hurt by all of the Atlantis things, because magic is involved.
Gotcha. So the trident is magic.
Yes, the trident is magic.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that's why whenever they have the big fight upstairs, he's able to do all of the things. Like, he was able to absorb Billy's lightning and then hit him back with it, changing him back to Billy. Shazam.
Okay.
So yeah, the trident is magic, and that is one of the things that I think this movie does well. This movie does a great job of demonstrating Aquaman's potential to be a fucking problem. We have seen other movies by this point where Aquaman is like he could ruin everybody's day, mainly in Flashpoint. That's the point where we really see, like, if anybody didn't know that Aquaman was about it, that's the movie where you learn, like, oh, he could destroy the earth, and he can go toe to toe with most of the league. Like, I would say Wonder Woman, Aquaman can't hang with Wonder Woman, not in a one-on-one. And we see that. Almost everybody else, Aquaman could put up a pretty good fight against.
Batman?
And yeah, if Batman don't have prep time.
Batman also has prep time.
If Batman has prep time, it's a different situation. But if Batman, like, if they just met anywhere other than like the desert, then
the mountains, an open forest, the plains, the savannah, any other place besides the water, this middle of the city.
If they're in the middle of the city, Batman's gonna it's gonna be rough for him. But anyway, this movie does a great job of demonstrating the type of problem that Aquaman can be. Again, Aquaman can take over the world if he needs to, and Aquaman can hang with the vast majority of the league. Like, Aquaman is a heavy hitter, and I think that their fight with Ocean Master kind of demonstrates what kind of things Aquaman would be able to do under the right circumstances. Because we see Ocean Master going to work, and we see him giving everybody problems. Yeah. And again, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there is magic involved, and the whole royal blood. But yeah, that trident is something serious. Like, that's one of those artifacts that can get a lot done. And so we see him defeat the Justice League and basically put them into those little pods, and he sends them down to the trench monster. And then Arthur, remembers him saying, only he who has royal blood can.
That's when I had a problem. I was like, okay, so just because he remembered it now, he was able to activate his powers.
The power of friendship.
Yeah, that was one of the other parts I didn't like. I was like, come on now. My man didn't even know he was he had powers like this 25 minutes ago. Now he talking to fish, breaking out of there, controlling stuff. I'm like, all right.
Yes, the power of friendship is how that happened. And sometimes you just need the power of friendship. Now, I like that in this he went very specifically to go save Superman. Like, he knew,
like, I gotta go get the big guy.
Yeah, he knew. He was like, no, if I need anybody's help, it's you. You're first. And so yeah, he saved Superman. That was the right choice, because Superman is able to handle the trench monster, which may have a name, but I don't know. And then everybody else is able to get free. Ocean Master has already set a tidal wave to go handle Metropolis, because Batman, Shazam, and Flash are like, oh shit, there's a tidal wave coming, and we need to do something. So they arrive, and the army, or the military, I don't know if it was the army necessarily, but the military is like, hey, Atlantis, stop. And Ocean Master was like, how about no? I don't stop. And then they fire at him, and he's like, my turn. And he just starts, giving them problems. Like, it's not going well for the military. But luckily, the Justice League show up, and then Black Manta gets to talking. Now, I will say, I did not think he was going to die, A, in this movie at all, but B, that easily. Like, he did nothing.
Me neither. My boy got taken by a megalodon. Like, what the heck?
Like, why were you even in this movie, Black Manta? Like, you did nothing.
Nah, yeah, he really didn't do nothing.
Like, and I love Black Manta, but yeah, like, he just useless as fuck. Just not even a factor. I was bothered by how he got handled. Like, they did him wrong, in my opinion.
Especially for him to be like top 5 Aquaman villain. You're like, what?
He's Aquaman's main, like, he's the guy, like the arch nemesis. And yeah, got took out easily. Like, we didn't even really get to see him do the eye beam very much. Like, if
I don't even remember if he did.
He did it like once. But yeah, like I wanted to see Black Manta do some work, but no, he just was like, it was my plan all along. Ha, dead. And so I didn't like that. But I think they could have demonstrated Aquaman's ability to do that on somebody else. I think doing that with Black Manta was a waste, because it made him irrelevant. But anyway, the League is doing okay, and then they get to Ocean Master himself, and he just kind of deals with everybody. And the fact that he was able to do that on land, if they had been in the water, it wouldn't have got, well, I mean, we saw what happened in the water. In the water, he just pretty immediately dealt with them. On land, it took a little more doing, but he was able to handle pretty much everybody. And so Batman is like, hey, this is not a brute force situation. We need something. Give me something. So we see Batman, trying to use every angle that he can, trying to figure out what can we do to disrupt his operation. Not even necessarily to, just punch him as hard as we can, but we need something that's going to, disrupt this whole thing. And so he finds out that Cyborg, had the record button on, as always. And so he broadcasts him admitting that he killed the queen. And at first he's like, it's a dirty trick. And then whenever Mira was like, nope, I was there, I heard him say it. Then he was like, no, I did this for you. I did this for your benefit. And, we've seen that. We've seen people in power tell people below them that they did these things for them, when in fact, no, that's not what this was. So we see, the corruption at the top. And before that happened, Ocean Master was about to kill Aquaman. Like, Aquaman was going to die right then. And he killed Cyborg. Like,
my boy had to get a charger.
Yeah, like Cyborg's light went out. Like, Cyborg was dead, and Batman had to tase his ass back to life.
I mean, he had Green Lantern down too.
He dealt with everybody. Like, Ocean Master was about to win, and a lot of that could be just another, a demonstration of how powerful the king of Atlantis at any moment is. It could have been so that we have real stakes. It could have been because this is a brand new Justice League and they're not the best version of themselves individually or as a team yet. We have all of those things at play. And so we see that Aquaman is about to die, and Cyborg creates a diversion, which then allows Aquaman to capitalize and say, hey, I'm the captain now. And everybody's like, cool. Everybody's just like, yeah, that's fine. You're the king. Yeah, we agree. And that works out. So at his crowning ceremony, the League then has the discussion of like, hey, we need to, kind of secure, we need to lock this down. We need to, get a committee or something, because obviously, there are bigger, badder things that are happening, and so we need to create some actual unity here. We need to do like that league thing that the media is talking about, and like we need to actually like put that together, or at least put some effort into it. And Cyborg is like, oh yeah, I'm already working on that, because I'm the one who called the first meeting. Like I'm the reason y'all motherfuckers is here. So yeah, I know that, and I am already working on something for us. So yeah, let's yeah. And then in the post credit scene, oh, one thing I did forget to mention, two things I forgot to mention. Do you know who John Henry Irons is?
I noticed that, and the only reason I noticed that was because I watched uh Lois and Clark, and he was on that season. And when he grabbed the hammer, I was like, there we go. I remember his name was John, and I
Yeah.
was like, still made the reference. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm glad you noticed that. He definitely showed up, and like the fact that he, saw Superman, I was like, oh, okay. They're building a
Got a
world
little,
here.
yeah, I got inspired by him. I was like, gotcha.
Yeah, they're building a world here, because we will see that man later, and we will talk about it later. Um, Also, Cyborg and the Doctor. Now Dr. Umar would be proud, I imagine. But Cyborg, when we meet him, is still in high school. And that's in Justice League War. This is not very long after that, I don't think. And so, at the oldest, Cyborg is probably 18. And that's giving him some credit, because we don't
And
really know how old he is. And
she's a
this
doctor.
this lady's a doctor, which means she was in school for a while.
She's
Like,
at least 25.
yeah, she's a grown ass woman. Because that's how long you have to do things in order to be a doctor. Like, you're not a doctor until you're grown ass. Like, that's how long it takes. And so,
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's funny.
yeah, and also, my mom was with me when I was watching this, and my mom was like, so how much of Cyborg is still flesh?
I was going to ask that. Do you think?
And I said to my mom, well, I think in this version, just his face, because his heart and his brain are the only things that he has according to the movie.
My boy got that rocket down low.
And yeah, my mom was like, well, if that's all he is, why is she interested?
You know why?
I was like,
Got
Mama,
that. Got that all nighter.
uh, and had I not been talking to my mom, I
You'd
would
have
have
went there,
said,
huh?
he can turn his arm into a lot of things.
Yeah, it was like talking to your mom. You can't make that type of comment.
I did not do that. Um, but in my head, I was like, I'm sure that his skills will translate.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, like, and he won't have to worry about getting her pregnant.
That is also true. My oh my. Oh, okay. So I wanted to say I was going to say it earlier, but then I changed my mind. I said I'll say it at the towards the end. So I know you don't watch trailers, but I have watched the trailer for Aquaman, and I mean, by the time it's come out, like I've have seen it. So I know that this looks very similar to Aquaman 2. And so I'm wondering if this is what inspired the new Aquaman 2 movie. Because in the new movie, we see there's two Aquamans.
Okay.
But
It might. We're gonna see, because the first Aquaman movie did take some elements from the same story. So we'll see how much of it they took from.
was Ocean Master in the first one?
Yes. Like he's the villain in the first one because Black
Oh
Manta's
well,
in
maybe
it,
okay,
but
okay,
Black Manta's not like we see Black Manta kind of become Black Manta in like the end credit scene or like it later in the movie, but like it's Ocean Master is the villain in the
okay.
first
Well, maybe I'm
Aquaman.
tripping. Maybe I'm just thinking of the first one, but clearly I don't know my DC history with this one.
Yeah, and I mean we
But
see and another reason is because Willem Dafoe's character Volko is important in the comic book and doesn't even appear in this movie, I don't think. But yeah, he's in the movie. So the movie takes some notes. I wouldn't necessarily call it a loose adaptation, but I'd say that the Aquaman live action movie, took some things from this story and incorporated them. But yeah. Um anyway, by the time this episode comes out, I think the Aquaman 2 will have freshly dropped.
yeah,
Um so then in the post-credit scene, which you kind of got to make your way through because the credits have like random stills and then like the end credit scene
yeah,
is at the very end, and if you don't know it's there, you're not going to go and check. But in the end credit scene, we see that Orm is in Bel Rev and pissed about it, and then Lex Luthor is like, "Hey, I got a proposition for you if you're interested." And so we'll have to see what fruit comes from that later on. But after talking through the movie, scale of 1 to 10, what are you thinking?
I think after freshly watching it, I was at a solid. Did I already give a rating earlier?
I
No,
don't
I
think so.
didn't. Yeah, freshly after watching the movie, I gave it like a 6.5. I think after kind of talking about it a little bit, I'll give it a 7. It still wasn't my favorite. Still has some issues, and also could be because I'm not a big Aquaman fan. Um,
And
but
it's so funny. The reason I selected you for this episode is because it takes place in Atlantis. And I know how
yeah,
important Atlantis is to you.
I mean, I didn't want to bring that up, but I mean, there is a better Aquaman out there, and we refer to him as Namor, the real king of Atlantis, not Talakon, whatever you want to call it. The real king of Atlantis is Namor, not Namor, but Namor.
You're such a hater.
I love it.
But anyway, yeah, I wanted you to watch this movie very specifically because I know that you have been needing some Atlantis. And
There you
so
go. So, what would you give it?
I give this movie, I think out the door, I gave it an 8. And I think that I would give it a 7.5. There were some things that were like, okay, that was weird. But I enjoyed it. Like I liked it. And it did a lot of good. No, I'm going to keep it in an 8 because there are a lot of good things that it did. And there are a lot of moments where I was like, "Ooh, that's really good. That's good shit." There were some things where I was like, "No, we probably shouldn't have done that, or we could have changed that. We could have done that a little differently." But there are some themes that this movie, brings up that I really liked and could get behind. The potential corruption with a corrupt leader and the building a narrative to get the people to go along with what you want. We see the Justice League actually working together and using their different skills and knowledge to piece together what's going on. We see, a lot of tactical things that are happening on both sides. We see a firm demonstration of the power that can come from Atlantis. Like there's a lot that this movie does give us that I really enjoyed. But yeah, like what happened to Black Manta, a travesty.
Yeah,
Um, some of the like, and again, there were some little like dumb things early in the movie that's like, oh, okay. But I'm gonna give it an 8. Um, I enjoyed it and I like a lot of the things it did. So yeah. You got anything else on it?
Um, I don't. I think I've said my piece with the movie. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I've said my piece.
Okay. Okay. Well, cool. In the next episode, we will be discussing Batman versus Robin. So until then, salutations.